Welcome to a short tutorial for Audacity, the free sound editing program. This is going to be very straightforward, and we're going to tell you most of the things that Audacity can do. It's not the most advanced program, and it's a little bit on the clunky side compared to like Creative's Wave Studio 7 or some other tools, but it does have the virtue of being free. So we're going to look at the bars very quickly. The most commonly used ones, of course, your play, stop, pause, jump to end, jump to forward. We have your sound levels here. We're going to talk about more about that in a moment. You can adjust the output volume of music and of a microphone volume here. And right here, this is the bar you are going to use the most. This is the editing bar. You have your cut and copy and paste, and your trimming ability, and you can insert silence, your undo and redo, just like Microsoft Word. And so what we're going to do is we're going to import an audio file. Bach's Concerto for 2 violins is going to be our selection today, and here it is, and we're going to fire that up. And as you can see, I can make it a little bit louder, a little bit softer. Now, you'll see the audio level bars here. This is very important. It is very important that you keep the audio within certain norms. You do not want these pegged out all the way at max all the time, because when you do that, that creates the biggest mistake people make when editing audio, and that's called overmodulating it. You ever fire up a YouTube video and the sound is obnoxiously loud and it's all crackly and it's almost intolerable? That's what it means by overmodulation. I'm going to try and simulate that for you. And that's what overmodulation should sound like. And as you can see, it's very irritating. It's not something you want to be listening to. It would probably prompt you to shut it off immediately. Back to the editing tools. As you can see here, we have the music graphed out in left and right channels. So you can select a piece of audio, or you can trim it on the end and make it shorter. Or let's say we're doing a piece of house music, for example. And house music has a steady beat. It has like an undermelody that repeats throughout the entire song. So let's say we want to take something and repeat it over and over. We just want to isolate a piece of audio from any kind of sound source that we have. So we just simply highlight a section, hit cut, and now that piece has been taken out. And the whole song is shorter now. We can now take that audio and we can paste it into another track, just like so. And we can listen to just that one. And that's the nice thing about Audacity. You can, for sound mixing multiple tracks, it's really pretty easy. You take your sound from multiple sources, you can record at different times, and you can mix it together in pretty much any way you want to, and get almost as complex as you like within the limits of the graphical user interface of the program itself. But we do not want to be butchering Bach's Concerto for 2 violins today. So we can undo, and as you can see, it just goes right through the entire list. If you want to make very fine adjustments in music and isolate out very small sections, that's what this section of the cut and edit graph is for. As you can see here, it has from 0 all the way to the end, but we can zoom in on that and really, like this whole part of the graph here is just 5 seconds. You can really get into the nitty-gritty as far as editing what you want in and what you want out. As far as special effects, Audacity does have a few good options. You can generate silence. It's very simple. Take how long you want to insert the silence, tell it in seconds, looks like down to 100,000ths of a second, and tell it where you want it, it will insert silence. You can generate a tone, or white noise, a tone, like for example, just like when you hear the weather alert on the radio, it has that irritating tone in the front of it. As far as special effects, this is a pretty long list, so try to bear with me. Amplify is pretty straightforward. If you have a audio that's recorded too softly, it will digitally amplify it and make it louder. Bass boost is very common for those who do high compression MP3s, because the more you compress the audio, the bass more will suffer. Changing the pitch, think Alvin and the Chipmunk style. Changing the speed. Let's say you have an audio that's it's a minute and 3 seconds, and you need to get it into a minute. You can actually play it just a little bit quicker, and without noticing much difference in the way it sounds. You'll see here compressor, and you'll see here hard limiter. Now, these are important tools, especially, for example, like in radio stations use them. Radio stations usually have a hardware device called a compressor limiter, and what that does is it takes the soft parts of a song and makes it louder, and takes the loud parts and brings them down. That way you aren't constantly adjusting the sound on your radio while the music is playing, except of course when a commercial comes and it blasts you. Also, movies don't use a compressor limiter usually, so if you're watching Star Wars, for example, the dialogue can get very soft, and then the big loud music comes and blasts you out of your chair, that kind of thing. But people usually don't want that when they're listening to the radio, which is why songs often sound different on the radio than when you play them at home. Echo is pretty straightforward. So is equalization. If you're running a rock and roll, you might want to bring up the highs and lows, or if you're running jazz or talk, you might want to bring up the center. Fade in and out, again, pretty self-explanatory. Instead of having music or sound cut off, it will fade out or decrease in volume until it goes away. Invert, this is commonly used for karaoke. You invert the waveform, it makes it a little easier to isolate out the vocals. Noise removal, if you record audio from an old cassette tape, and there's always that noise that comes with cassettes, that hiss, you can use noise removal to get rid of that. There are other things that can introduce noise, like if you have dirty power circuits, for example, you can get a 60 hertz hum, that kind of thing. You can add various effects, phaser, repeat, think the house music thing we talked about. You can reverse it, so you can check all your Beatles albums and see what Paul McCartney's really trying to tell you. A wah-wah effect, cross-fade in and out, so if you're going from one track to another, it'll fade out one track and fade into the next one. A tremolo is very simple. It adds vibrato. If you have a long tone, you want to add a little vibrato to it, you can do so. Analyze, these are tools not used very often. The beat finder is pretty self-explanatory. It'll tell you on this graph where the beats are, and you might want to be lining up audio so that the beats match two audio tracks. That's often used in mashups and that kind of thing. Another thing that's interesting is the plot spectrum. This tells you the range in hertz that your audio has. The human ear hears from about 20 hertz on the low end, that's the bassiest of bass, to about 20,000 hertz on the very high end. Most people do not enjoy that full range of hearing, though, throughout all their lives. So this way you can tell, you can see how far it goes on the high end, how far it goes on the low end. You might want to set this for certain areas. There are people who are hearing impaired, who have cochlear implants, who might not hear something below 100 hertz, for example. So you might want to keep that in mind when you're putting audio together, and that sort of thing. The last thing that I wanted to cover is this will give you a list of all the audio inputs on your sound card. I have an Audacity 2 Platinum. I have quite a few audio inputs. Every sound card will be different, but the more complex of audio equipment you have hooked up to your computer, it will detect all of those inputs, and you can set up a track for each and any of them as you so see fit. And thank you very much for tolerating this short introduction to Audacity, and I hope that you found it helpful.